Hey everyone, it's Ashley here. Welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I decided I would do another ranking video, and it's going to be supernatural related. Back when I started this channel, I did a ranking video for ranking the seasons of Supernatural. If you want to check it out, links up here. But I made that video just to do something fun, and a lot of people really liked it, so I decided to do another type of ranking video. But this time, I'm going to be ranking the Supernatural season finales. Now, if you're a fan of Supernatural, you know that the season finales typically are some of the episodes that can be the best ones, have a lot of like emotional, dramatic build-up, and it comes to the conclusion of what that season is all about, and helps lead into what the next season is going to be focused on. They're a really big deal, and they normally are very emotional and amazing acting going on, and so on and so forth. So this is probably the hardest list I've ever had to come up with, because these finales are some that I really enjoy and are really good overall for episodes of the show. So this was a very hard list to do, but I did it. So we'll go through that. Before I do hop into talking about my ranking, I do want to say a couple of things. First off, in this video, I will not be doing season 15. Reason why is because this is the season finales, which means that they are the end of a season before leading into the next. Season 15 obviously is the series finale, which is the end of the show. And so the definition for the season finale is that it has to go into another season. So 15 is not being included on here because that absolutely is like the finality of the show, so I'm not including it in here. So I will be doing seasons 1 through 14. The other thing to note is that I'm going to go ahead and give you your spoiler warning. These are going to be, you know, the finales that I am talking about for seasons 1 through 14. So I will be talking about what happened in the finales, what happened in the plot line of that season, and also talking a little bit how it covered over into the next season afterwards. So a little bit at the beginning of season 15 will probably be talked about, but after that I won't really be talking about anything with 15. So if you're not fully caught up with season 15, you'll be fine. But if you're not caught up with the show, maybe don't watch this video yet and come back to it later, or skip over the seasons that you haven't seen yet, because I will be talking about them. So just your warning. The last thing I do want to say is that this is my ranking, so this is my personal ranking, my opinion. Does not mean that it is correct, does not mean that it is the only opinion allowed, because everyone has their own episodes that they really enjoy, have their own reasons for enjoying the show, and so that is perfectly fine. So if your ranking is different than mine, that's okay. I did this in my ranking seasons video where I asked you guys to comment below your rankings for the seasons. So I would like to ask the same thing again, ask you to comment down below your rankings for the finales, the season finales for Supernatural. I really enjoyed reading through them and seeing how everyone's opinion was different, and like why they liked certain seasons and why they didn't like others. So I want to ask you guys to do the same thing here. Like, comment down below your ranking for the finales, and maybe like why you feel that way about certain ones. Like, why is this one your favorite? Why did you not care so much for this one? Yeah, just comment that down below. I would love to read through those. But yeah, so this is my opinion though, so if you disagree with it, that is a-okay. Like, that is absolutely fine. You probably feel differently about some of these episodes than me, and honestly, this list was extremely difficult to like come up with. So there's a lot of these that I ranked, but like they're like this close to being like a difference between them because I really like them. So it was really hard. Okay, it's really hard. But yeah, we'll hop into this ranking. Alright, so starting out at number 14 spot is season 7's finale, which is Survival of the Fittest. Now, season 7 is a season that had some good aspects to it to me, but also didn't. When it came to the finale for season 7, that was supposed to be like the culmination of that season where they were like gonna fight the Leviathans and they were gonna win, hopefully. And yeah, it was supposed to be like that, but like the finale for season 7, like legitimately, I know some of like the aspects that happened in it, but I truly just don't remember what all happened in that episode, like the full plot line. I really can't remember it. I think part of that came because like the Leviathans just weren't that intimidating. They weren't really scary. I didn't feel like we wouldn't beat them. I kind of knew we would. So it just didn't fall up to par of what I would have expected for a finale, especially for like these seasons that are later on. And then on top of it too, one of my favorite things that probably happened was the fact that, you know, Cass and Dean were sent to purgatory, which was a very interesting, you know, storyline and plot line that happened in season 8. And so at that point it was like, oh my gosh, like they're in purgatory, like what are they gonna do? How are they gonna get out? So that was really good. But then it was like Sam then got left on his home, which one of my problems with season 7 was like Sam and Dean literally lost everyone. They lost Bobby, they lost Cass, and it was like they were on their own. And then in the finale they had brought back Cass, you know, Meg was there, so it's like, they were getting Kevin, it's like great. And then Crowley took Kevin, took Meg, Cass and Dean got sent to purgatory, and then Sam was on his own. It was like you literally just did the exact same thing, except now Sam didn't even have Dean, and he's on his own again. Like, it just, I didn't really care for that, so it's ranked here for that reason. The number 13 spot is season 6, which is The Man Who Knew Too Much. This episode was hard to put where it is, and the biggest reason as to why it was placed here is just more or less because I personally did not care for the power-hungry Cass plotline. I don't really necessarily have an issue with one of our, you know, main protagonists being like a villain, because that's kind of happened with all of them. You know, Soulless Sam was Sam's, and then later on we get, you know, Marker Cane Dean and Demon Dean, and this was supposed to be like Cass's, you know, like evil whatever. But I just was like, Cass is not the character I would feel like who would be power hungry. It just didn't fit his personality. It didn't fit his character arc. Like him originally, like the whole point of like originally was like to stop Raphael and like, you know, protect everyone and protect the boys, and you know, that made sense. But then it became like, oh, I need this power. I was like, no. And then he broke Sam's wall, which is what we see. Like, we recognize as what happened at the beginning, because like the whole thing like with Sam being stuck in his head, I really liked that. I think that was really well done, with him having to get, you know, his soulless self memories back and then the memories of hell. I thought those were amazing scenes. Like I said, this was hard to put where it is because I really liked that. But like Cass breaking the wall, I just was like, what? And then him becoming power hungry. There's just a few things I just didn't really like in that, but it was a few, you know, it wasn't like a whole lot. So I just did not care for the power hungry Cass. I just didn't. I wish if they were gonna do Cass as like a villain, had done something different, like if he was gonna have like the evil side to him. The power hungry thing just didn't feel right to me. Maybe you feel like that was what his character would do, but personally I didn't see that coming at all. So alright, next up, number 12 spot is season 13's finale, Let the Good Times Roll. So there are things about this finale that I also enjoyed, that I thought were really, you know, interesting, well done. You know, one was the relationship with Jack and Sam, Dean, and Cass kind of being more like on the forefront. You know, obviously AU Michael coming in was like, whoa. And also I really, really enjoyed Michael Dean happening. Like, that was really amazing. But there are other things I just was like, oh, about this finale. The special effects. If you've seen this episode, you know what I'm talking about. I guess they wanted to try something new. I don't really know. But you have the one where Michael like floats down in the bunker. Just didn't look natural at all. And I know it's supernatural, but like literally did not look great. And then the infamous fight scene in the air between Lucifer and Michael Dean. Oh man, it just did not look great. And Jensen has spoke on this before. Like, he agreed that he did not like how it looked. He did not like how it was done. And I applaud them for wanting to try something new. Like, you know, it's always good to try new things. I'm glad they never did it again. It just did not look good. And I just can't get over it. I laugh when I watch that scene now because it's like, but you know, then, you know, obviously they killed Lucifer, which was great. Like, I was celebrating. I was like, yes, finally. And then, you know, the unfortunate thing of where Michael takes over and leads into what season 14 is going to be. It was pretty cool. But I just can't get over the special effects. Like, I literally can't. So, yeah. Next up in spot 11 is season 1's finale, Devil's Trap. So Devil's Trap, this is where we're kind of getting into more of the episodes that I did like, and I'm like nitpicking of how to get them on this list because I really do enjoy them. They like are all super close together. The reason why this finale is here is because season 1 is more of, I guess, a basic season, which makes sense because, like, you know, it's the very first season. And so the finale was, as compared to other finales, a lot less going on, but that's because it's the first finale, so I mean, it makes sense. It's not like I'm like dogging the finale, because I really liked it. I thought it was a really good finale, but it's just in comparison to like what later comes on, it's just not much going on. You know, they go to save their father. Turns out father was possessed by yellow eyes. It's like, what? My favorite scene though is when Dean, like, well, it's very sad. It makes me even more angry at John Winchester, where he's like,
my dad wouldn't be proud of me if he'd been mad at me for wasting.
I was like, the demon is nicer than your father. Oh my god. Like, that realization that came with that was like, You know, Yellow Eyes hurts Dean a lot, really badly, to where he ends up having to be hospitalized. And then, you know, the whole, like, the truck ramming into the Impala, the car crash, was like probably the biggest thing other than like Yellow Eyes appearing to like be shocking in that episode. But it's really well done. Like, it's a lot of great acting, just not as much going on. Alright, and my number 10 spot is season 11 finale, Alpha and Omega. So season 11 had a lot going on, and actually I always think the finale for season 11 is the episode right before this one where they all band together to try to stop Amara, but it's not, which is why this is ranked where it's at. But it's just like, you know, the whole beginning of this episode is kind of just like, oh crap, like that didn't work, what are we gonna do now? It really is just them kind of being like, well, what do we do? Like, this sucks, like this is sad. So that was kind of just like, oh, when's things gonna pick up? But it really picks up whenever they're starting to try and get the soul bomb put together. Oh, which was like really cool, like especially like seeing Sam and Dean go and like get the ghost. I really like that part because it was like back to their roots. The whole graveyard scene where Dean says goodbye, beautiful. Like the cinematography for that, gorgeous. The hug with Sam and Dean and the like petals falling. I can't even tell you how much I love how beautiful that looks and how like, oh my gosh, I can't even explain it. I have a picture on here somewhere of that hug with petals falling because I love it so much. Then it's like Dean goes and he just talks with Chuck and Amara and they just settle. It was like, well, that's great. Like, I'm glad it didn't end up with like them destroying everything. And then of course it ends with like Sam getting shot, and then Cass being sent somewhere. And then obviously the biggest revelation was Mary coming back, which I remember was a big deal. It was like, what? You know, it was very shocking to start with, so it was a pretty good finale. Number 9 spot is season 10's Brother's Keeper. This episode was very well done. The reason it's here is, again, in that beginning half of the episode just was a little dragging. You know, it is where Dean's kind of like coming to that point where he's like, I can't do this anymore, but I always end up forgetting the beginning of this episode, just because like I recognize, I'm like, oh, that Dean's like having a, like coming to this point where he's like, you know, I literally can't keep living with the mark, it's like bad, and he has to contact death. It was just, you know, like I recognize that, but I literally can't ever remember what happens most of the time, which is unfortunate for myself. But the standoff between Sam and Dean is so emotional, like amazing acting for their part, like Jared and Jensen. But one of my favorites things with seeing, especially with the finale and having to wait, was the darkness coming through. Like, that was just like epic. It was really cool. It was like, oh no, like this is a big deal. So that was pretty cool to see. Alright, next in number 8 spot is season 12's finale, All Along the Watchtower. So season 12, I did not much care for the British Men of Letters plotline, but that wrapped up this episode before this one. And this one's more focused on the Lucifer aspect and the child being born, which ends up being Jack. This episode wrecked me. If you've seen this, you absolutely understand what I'm probably talking about and saying that this episode wrecked me. Like, this, I think I was crying majority of this episode, and it's really and truly because like everyone like died. Like everyone died, and or something bad happened. Literally, that's it. That's what was this episode about. Everyone dying. Like, we get Rowena, who dies first, and I was not expecting that. At this point I had not developed my like love and appreciation for Rowena yet, so I wasn't as upset, but I was like, okay. And then they find the apocalypse world, which was like, whoa, this is a lot to take in, but it did bring in that whole AU universe thing, which I kind of liked the idea of that. I thought that was really interesting. And then Crowley sacrificed himself, and that was like his final ending. I sobbed so hard. I loved Crowley so much. So that was like, that happened. And then Cass gets killed. Was like, the heck, like what? And then Mary gets stuck in Apocalypse World, where we're left to think that she probably is gonna die. Obviously she doesn't, but we get left to think that. And then Kelly dies, and then Jack is there, and we don't know if he's evil or not. It was a lot. And the reason this could have been done like where it was just too much, but somehow they managed where, yes, I was an emotional wreck, but I didn't feel like it was too much going on to where I couldn't follow what was happening, and it was overwhelming. Like, it was overwhelming in an emotional aspect, but it wasn't overwhelming overall. So that's why it's ranked here, because it was like a lot of those endings, like Crowley's ending, you know, could have been more. I agree with, you know, it could have been a lot more, but you know, it hit where it needed to hit, and Mark Sheppard's acting just absolutely nailed it to where it was like, it hit hard in the feels. It hit so hard. And then Cass's death, like seeing that reaction to it, was a lot. And then knowing the boys like lost everything again. Okay, can we stop like taking everything away from them, guys? I'm just gonna keep saying that because I'm really upset whenever that happens. You know, it was just a lot, so that's why it's here. Alright, number 7 spot is season 3's finale, No Rest for the Wicked. This finale was phenomenal. Such a good finale, especially for a season that had to end early because of the writer's strike. I've always said this when it came to season 3 because I didn't know about the writer's strike when I started watching the show. It felt like it was cut shorter because of the fact that Dean only had a year, and it really just felt like the time mattered. And it did feel like that, especially whenever we got to this finale. It was a lot of emotions, a lot of emotional talks between Sam and Dean. Sam trying to figure out like about his powers, about if he could use them or not, which leads into obviously what happens in season 4. It just was so much going on. We get Lilith in this. We get, you know, that whole horrible scene of where Dean actually ends up biting the bullet was just, oh, it was a lot. I was crying. Appreciate that they did practical effects. I thought that was really interesting, but it was a lot. But it was really well done, and it was a really good finale, I think. Especially like Dean in hell and yelling for Sam. It just was like left you on the edge of your seat. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, how are they gonna fix this? Like, so I think it was really well done. Great acting in that too. Alright, number 6 spot is one episode that is very close and dear to my heart, which is season 9's finale, Do You Believe in Miracles? This finale is close to my heart because this is the first episode of Supernatural I ever watched live. And if you've seen the finale, you know, wow, that was a great one to watch live. I never will forget the emotions I felt watching this episode. And if it honestly weren't for the fact that I was so connected with this one, it would probably be a little bit further back on the list, just because the beginning of the episode, like I talked about with a couple other ones, was not as much going on, because, you know, it's that build-up of like Dean was searching for Metatron, and they found out Metatron's like on Earth, and he's trying to act like he's like a prophet or whatever, be walking among them, or, well, you know, I don't like Metatron, so yeah, I don't much care for him. That was not as much stuff going on, but obviously the ending is just, from whenever Metatron ends up stabbing Dean, it just goes like insane from there, and the emotions, the acting, it just was so much. You know, we get Dean dying, which was like, emotions, crying, tears. Cass being like amazing and using his intelligence to like defeat Metatron, which was great because, you know, that whole thing between Metatron and Cass was just like, I was like, especially after Metatron took Cass's grace and everything, I was like, please let Cass be the one that like stops Metatron. So I was really happy that he ended up, you know, thwarting his plans and everything. But there was that whole emotional thing of, I'm proud of us. I hear that still, like, in a couple, like, especially on TikTok, I've seen some audios where it's like they'd use that. I cry every time. I don't think I've had one time I hadn't cried when watching it, and just literally keep crying. And then the last thing, like the Crowley speech, Dean opening his eyes and then being black and it being demon eyes, I can't tell you guys how, like, my reaction was. That was the first finale I ever watched. Like, it was the first episode I ever watched And I remember that happening, me screaming, getting up, and running around in my house because I just could not, I was like, what? Like, excuse me? And then because I had watched it live, it was going on hiatus, and so I was like, I have to know what happens, but I couldn't because we were on break. So there was just so many emotions I felt with it, but it was all positive. So I really, really enjoyed that finale, and will always do. I think it was just so epic, and one that is infamous in the supernatural world and the supernatural fandom too, I think. Alright, now we're at the top 5. These were so hard, but we're gonna go through them. So spot number 5 goes to season 14's Mariah. So I know a lot of people had mixed emotions about Mariah, but me personally, I can't even explain how, like, pumped I got after watching that finale. Like, I literally rewatched it like 5 or 6 times after it like ended, because I literally was like, oh my gosh, I like need to rewatch this and like feel the emotions again. It just was like, we think Jack's the villain of the season, and like, but he's also not the villain, he just doesn't have a soul. And then Chuck comes, and like, we're like, oh man, Chuck can help fix this, and Chuck's like, no, you gotta kill him. And I was like, what? No, I don't want to do that. And then the whole ending like just blew me away. I did not see any of that coming. You know, where it turns out that Chuck is the one that's writing everything, that he's the one that's kind of the villain of the story, and that literally it's like, oh wow, and then he kills Jack, and it's like, no, and then Sam shot him, and he goes, welcome to the end. And we know we're going into the final season after this, so it was just like the finality of that hit so hard. And then after that, it goes into like that whole ending, like of everything rising, and like the spirits and stuff that Sam and Dean had killed came back. I remember watching it, and I wish I had recorded reactions back then. I literally sat there for that whole ending just exactly like this. No words, nothing. I literally just could not believe what I was seeing. Like, I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I literally was in disbelief. It had me very excited for what was coming for 15. I was just like, how are they gonna like wrap this up? Like, how are they gonna do this? Like, this is like the hardest battle that they're gonna have to go against. And I know some people were upset about the ghosts that they had took care of being brought back, but for me, I saw it as poetic. And I get it why people who didn't like it, because that makes sense. You know, it's like all their hard work was worth nothing. But I guess I saw it more as poetic of like, this is where they started, and now we're here at the end, and they're gonna have to try and deal with all the demons of their past. I just saw it in that light, and I really thought that that was interesting for going into the last season. So I personally really like this finale, which is why it's ranked here. Alright, number 4 is season 2's finale, All Hell Breaks Loose Part 2. Wow, this finale has so much going on in it. You know, Sam died, and then it was the first time we ever had a character death, like of one of our main characters on the show. So, like, other than, like, John, but, like, nah. But, like, of Sam and Dean, and then obviously Cass isn't there yet, but, like, for any of them, this is, like, the first one. And then Dean sells his soul to bring Sam back, which was like, oh no, this is gonna be a problem, isn't it? And then we have the whole showdown with Azazel, and that was just, like, the culmination of what the original idea was with starting Supernatural. Of course, the full thing was, you know, the first 5 seasons were written to be like a whole full plot line. So it's not the culmination of what the show was, but it was a culmination of what the original, like, first villain, like the thing that started this all for them, was boiling down to. And in that sense, it was just like satisfaction that came from that. Like, they defeated Azazel, and it was like, finally. And it really kind of helped start that next chapter of what Supernatural was going to be about. And I really, really enjoyed this finale. I think it was really well done. There's a lot of amazing acting. There's just so many good parts of that episode that were really well done. Okay, number 3 goes to season 4's Lucifer Rising. This finale, oh man. This is where the revelations came in, and this is where it was like, it just blew me away with so many things that I didn't notice was going on, and then it was like, this is the secret of what's happened this season. You know, I rewatched and I was like, I see it, and I didn't see it before. I didn't know. I mean, I get that Ruby was like not a good influence on Sam, but I thought it was just because she was a demon. I did not know she was playing Sam. I did not know that until that happened, and she's like, actually, I've been working to like help free Lucifer, and only one who knew that was Lilith. I was like, excuse me? What? Did not see that at all. And then Cass breaking through and being like, no, I'm going to like fight for free will. I was so pumped about that. And then of course the end. I mean, there's so much amazing acting in this entire episode. Like, you know, they had the voicemail that happened, both when Dean does his voicemail, which was beautiful, and then when Sam gets his, and it's detrimental. Like, it's just, the acting that they did was so good. And then the last minutes of the show, whenever Lucifer is starting to rise, Dean breaks in, they take out Ruby. It's just, it was so much, and it literally kind of just left you sitting there like, oh no, like, how are they gonna fix this? This is a problem. It was a jaw-dropping type of episode. It was fast-paced, but not so much to where you couldn't keep up with it. Acting, again, like I said, phenomenal. It just is everything you could have asked for a finale. It was just really great. Okay, so now with the final two. Number 2 spot for me is season 8's Sacrifice. This finale. Oh, this finale has been one that has stuck with me ever since I've watched it. It is just so much. As I mentioned when I talked about season 8 before, first half of season 8 didn't care for. But the second half of the trials, I really liked the story of the trials, and I wish that had been what season 8 was focused on, but it was just really well done. And then with them finally going into that last trial, it's like, you know, they're gonna shut the gates. And then we had the whole thing with like Cass with Metatron trying to also shut with Heaven, which ended up not being what has happening. But you know, it was just that whole idea of like, oh, they're finally gonna do this. But I can't even describe the acting in this. And I literally, actually, when I'm filming this, the day before was Mark Shepard's panel that was done with Creation Entertainment online virtual panel. And Mark kept talking about how this was one of his favorite scenes he's ever filmed. That the emotions when filming this was like just amazing and overwhelming, but also like, it just felt like everyone was working together to make something really great. And you felt that when you watched that finale. Like, you could feel it. The Sam and Crowley scenes, phenomenal. Like, Mark Shepard's acting was like, oh my gosh, like, so high up. I mean, I was just like, wow, like, this is so good. And then, oh, don't even get me started on the whole, like, Sam and Dean scene in the church. Like, that scene still makes me cry. I have watched that scene, I can't even tell you how many times, but the acting is just, I don't even think there's a word to describe how amazing that acting was. You just felt it. Like, you felt that love and emotion that they have for each other as brothers, and that they really care for each other, and that this was so much. And oh my gosh, I don't even think I can explain how I felt watching it, because I was so overwhelmed with emotions. And then came the whole Metatron thing where he was like, nah, I'm actually gonna kick everyone out. Taking Cass's grace was like, I just was like, oh no. And then that beautiful scene, it was a beautifully tragic scene of the angels falling. That scene, I love how beautiful it looks. Like, I want a picture of it. Like, I have a picture, I think, on my wall, but like, I want a beautiful and big picture of that because it's gorgeous. So that finale, phenomenal to me. And number 1 is probably unsurprisingly season 5's finale, Swan Song. So Swan Song was supposed to be original ending for the show, but ends up not being, which is why it also is still on this list, because they ended up being picked up for season 6 and it ends up leading into season 6. But this episode is just absolutely well done. I don't think there's like as many words that I can give to it, because it's just so well done. There's the whole narrating throughout it, talking about home and talking about the Impala, but also just home being like who's with you, which has been, you know, at this point it's Sam and Dean, and then Cass coming in and Bobby also coming in, and it being their little wayward family. And it shows so much about family, about love, about sacrifice. Like, it builds up on all of those aspects. It is a beautifully tragic finale. You know, there's just so much. The acting is the best acting I think I've seen in like an episode altogether, with every character like literally setting the bar as high as possible. Like, it was just, everyone was putting their all into that, and you could tell. I sob like a baby every time I still watch that episode, like, really and truly. It's like, for me, sometimes I think I'm like watching a movie sometimes I'm watching it, which is funny because it is just a television show and it's one episode, but like, it just is so like well done and well written, well scripted, well acted, great production. Like, the scenery, like, there's just so much that came into it that just worked well for it. It was a really great into like the first half of Supernatural, what that original plotline was going to be. And yeah, I don't think I can fully articulate like how great that finale is, and so it's number one for that reason. And that obviously is the end of this list and ranking. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you're not already, please subscribe to this channel. I make a ton of fandom content, including Supernatural, and also do Harry Potter. I'm wanting to expand on some other fandoms. I'm just trying to get things together. It's just been a really busy 2021 already with school and everything, and also coming up on graduation. So I'm trying to like get my life together, so hopefully I will be able to start doing some other fandoms as well on here. But if you're not already, please subscribe down below. If you want to follow me on other social media platforms, I have them linked in the description below. I have an Instagram, a Twitter, and a TikTok, and on that TikTok I do post a ton of Supernatural content almost daily. So if you haven't already and you want to follow me elsewhere, go check those out. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope that you all have a lovely day. Carry on, my wayward people. Bye!